I went to work for the Office for Civil Rights, HEW, in January of 1974. My job originally was to handle complaints and to work various school districts on school desegregation. We'd go into the district, and I worked in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. We'd go in and we'd talk to teachers, we'd look at the discipline policies, all kinds of things, and it was just interesting just to be there. And so I knew all the teachers in the Minneapolis St. Paul school district because I worked with them over a 3-year period.
So this was a regional job, not just in Chicago?
No, it was a regional job. So we had the 6-state Midwest region, and like I said, I was assigned to the school districts in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Then about 8 months later, my boss says, we got this job that we want you to take in addition to what you're doing, and we want you to be we want you to handle Title IX. I said, what's Title IX? They said Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 is responsible for ensuring that women have equal access in educational arenas to opportunities, and the primary emphasis was sports. I said, oh, okay, I think I can do that. And there were 2 of us. One, I was out of Chicago, and then there was an office in Cleveland. We're all in the same region. So the 2 of us went to training in Washington, got trained, and guess where they sent me for my first training session? Back to Carbondale to train coaches. Well, the coaches weren't bad.
How to treat the women fairly.
How to treat women fairly in sports. Because the coaches we talked to were the football coaches. But they weren't the problem. It was the mothers of the boys playing football who were also the booster club. I think I was 5 times that day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all in one setting, as we tell the coaches, well, this is what you will be expected to do. Now, the administrators were there, but the most vocal group was the football coaches and these mothers. But they let the mothers do everything. So one mother stood up and says, now, what do you mean? You want my son to give up his opportunity to play football, to go to college, to get a scholarship, and perhaps to play pro football? Now, this was 1975. I'm like, no, we want you to give access to those individuals to. I said, do you have a daughter? She goes, yes, but she's not going to play football. I said, we don't want her to. I said, does she play sports? Yeah, right now she's playing basketball, and I think they were playing half court. They weren't playing full court. She said, yeah, she's playing basketball, but there ain't no place for her to go. She just needs to go get a husband. I go, okay. So at any rate, I did that for about another 2 or 3 years, and I did this with coaches and other groups, and I ended up working two major complaints. One involved the Women's Equity Action League in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. I get a call or a letter one day from then Senator Hubert Humphrey's office that says, we've got these issues. There are 42 school districts. They're not paying women teachers adequately, and we want you to do this. So it came to my desk because I was working the one half of the region. That was Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Illinois. Okay, so I started looking at it, and there's 42 districts. We found that was the problem. Well, the next day I get a call from then Senator Walter Mondale's office, and they're calling not on behalf of the teachers who had filed complaints, but the districts. So here I am in the middle of the 2 most powerful people in the Senate, Mondale and Humphrey, and they're both liberals, but they had different perspectives. So the staffers calling me, one was in my ear about all of the things we were doing wrong to the districts, and the other one's in my ear about all the things we're doing wrong to these poor teachers who were all females who should be paid more. That went on. We were able to work through a variety of issues, and with other staff in the Office for Civil Rights settle that case. That ended up being one of the premier cases of what do you do, and what we looked at Title VII and what we needed to do, but it was a Title VI case originally and a Title IX case.
And these titles were under the Civil Rights Act.
Under the Civil Rights Act, yes.
Because the impression is that the Civil Rights Act only helped African Americans.
Right, no, and interestingly enough, when I was working in the school district, we were looking at African American issues, race, color, national organ. We were looking at African Americans and Native Americans in the Minneapolis-St. Paul School District, and a few Hispanics, because there were a lot of migrant farm workers throughout the region. So a lot of them were settling out. So we saw those 3 communities of color being impacted by discipline, by failure to have access to a lot of issues. But when I went over to Title IX got to be a big, broad issue, and it was about women of all colors and all issues, and so we were working on that. The second one was the Illinois High School Athletic Association complaint, where a father made a complaint on behalf of his two daughters and charged the Athletic Association with failing to provide adequate times for his girls to play sports and to play sports with appropriate practice times. So they were saying, oh, your kids can play basketball, your girls can play basketball. Yeah, but they can't, but they practice, you want them to practice at 6 a.m. in the morning. Or, yeah, your girls can swim. Yeah, but they can't swim until 6:30 in the evening when the boys finish. We want appropriate, adequate times, and we believe that it's more appropriate and adequate if we share times so that no one is unduly burdened by the early morning or the hours that are very difficult for parents to get them to, either really early, really late, or in the middle of the day, in some instances on a Saturday. And we want to make sure that they have equipment, that they have uniforms if that is necessary, and that they have access to teams that are appropriate, and that they have all of the things necessary for girls to develop appropriately in the athletics. Well, myself and an attorney from HEW worked on that and settled that, but it was a father on behalf of his two daughters. And that was another big case.